I gotta have my coffee. Do y'all drink coffee? I'm sure you do. Well, uh, I wanna read Genesis. Genesis, as we all know, it's the beginning of everything. Uh, the way man looks at Genesis in the wisdom of man, some say it's just a story made up many, many thousands of years ago. And man has his own scientific idea of what the universe. Well, we all know that part of the story about the scientific theory of everything, the universe especially. And it's real simple. The universe was created. I can't say how many. I can't. It just says in the beginning. So I'm not going to speculate on that. It says that the opening verse can be taken as a summary, introducing the whole passage, or it can be read as the first event. So the origin of the heavens and the earth, sometimes before the first day, including the creation of matter, space, and time. This second view, the origin of the heavens and the earth, is confirmed by the New Testament writers. Affirmation that creation was from nothing. Hebrews 11:3. And Revelations 4, verse 11. So it says God created. Although the Hebrew word for God is Elohim, Elohim, is plural in form, possibly to express majesty. The verb create is singular, indicating that God's is thought as of one being, one. So Genesis is consistently monotheistic, theistic in its outlook. In marked contrast to other ancient Near East accounts of creation, there's only one God. And the Hebrew verb bara, create, is always used in the Old Testament with God as a subject. While it is not always used to describe creation out of nothing, it does stress God's sovereignty and power. Heavens and earth, in verse 1, here it means everything. This means then that in the beginning refers to the beginning of everything. And the text indicates that God created everything in the universe, which also affirms that He did in fact create it ex nihilo, Latin for out of nothing. The effect of opening words of the Bible is to establish that God, in His inscrutable wisdom, sovereign power, and majesty, is the creator of all things that exist. So, in verse 1, it says, In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And that's it. He created the heavens and the earth. God. Okay? And again, God created. God in the Hebrew is Elohim, and it's plural. And it expresses majesty, His greatness. And the verb create is singular, indicating that God is thought of as one being. So, there it is, folks. Verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. What else can I say? That's what the Bible says. Okay? So, if we go to verse 2, in verse 2, the initial description of the earth as being without form and void, a phrase repeated within the Old Testament only in Jeremiah chapter 4, verse 23, implies that it lacked under order and constant. So, without form and void. All right? And again, it's repeated in the Jeremiah chapter 4, verse 23, and it implies that it lacks order and content. All right? So, when men talk about the beginning of the universe, and they have this theory about a bang, boom, and it spread through time, and everything was chaos. And now that they came up with this new telescope, the Webb telescope, and they can see further in time, they're beginning to see, accordingly, solar systems being formed. And for many years since the beginning, when man started thinking about the heavens and the earth and how it was formed, and later on through telescopes, and then they started figuring out that the sun is the center of the solar system, and things go around, all the celestial bodies go around the planet, the sun. I'm talking about the planets and the moons and everything that's being grabbed by the gravitational strands of the sun, in effect on these planets, and everything's clear. You look up to Jupiter and it's clear. You don't see dust and all kinds of things that are out of order. So when they look back and with these telescopes, and they begin to find other planets, and they see there are certain times they've already photographed a system being formed, and you can tell that system is in chaos. So man, with his knowledge, has learned things that, if you look at it, they begin to go back. It goes back to the Bible. Men discovers things, and then they find out later that the Bible had already talked about it. So, and then it says darkness over the face of the deep, it says there. This points to the absence of light. Where there's dark, there's no light. But in reality, there is light. But our eyes are not that, doesn't have that ability to still see in the dark. Now, we go back to the instruments that they use nowadays. They're called spectrometers, or where they can divide the light into colors, and each color represents a different wavelengths of light. And if you see with our eyes, we see what we call optical. We see it the way it is. We see a moon. The moon is there, and we see the reflection of the light from the sun to the moon and things like that. But if you look at the moon in a different spectrum, in a different color of light, like for instance infrared. which we can't. Our eyes are not made to see infrared. We're made to see light, the color of light, light. And so we look at the moon through an infrared telescope, and we see a totally different. We see things that we cannot see with our own eyes. So we can, see darkness through dark. There's darkness, but here it means that it was dark over the face of the deep, points to the absence of light. This initial state will be transformed by God's creative activity. The Spirit of God was hovering, and this comment creates a sense of expansion. Something is about to happen. There's no reason to postulate that a long time elapsed between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2, during which the time the earth became desolate and empty. Critical scholars argue that the word deep in Hebrew, Tehom, is a remnant of Mesopotamian mythology from the creation account called Enuma Elish, a Marduk, in fashioning the universe, had also to vanquish Tiamat, a goddess of chaos. And these scholars believe that the Hebrew God had to conquer the chaos deity Tiamat in the form of the deep. Notice the similarity of the two words Tehom and Tiamat. There are many linguistic reasons, however, for doubting a direct identification between the two. In any event, there's no conflict in Genesis or in the rest of the Bible between God and the deep, since the deep rarely does God's bidding. So that's verse 2. Verse 1, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And verse 2, the earth was without form and void, and the darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. So that's been 12 minutes already, and 13 on just verse 1 and 2 of Genesis. So can you imagine how much time it takes to prepare a lesson and so people can understand what's really going on in the Bible? I'm reading from the commentaries of the Bible, the writers of this Bible. There's a lot of good writers, good authors, good learned scholar men that are sincerely, into the study, deep thought. And they write, their own commentaries of, things like the darkness, the void, and things like that. And they're good to read. They're very good to read because as long as they're in unity on the same mind and spirit, everything is okay. So that was verse 1 and 2 of Genesis. Well, thank you for listening, and I hope you all stay tuned for the next 2 verses, I think, or 1. Depends on the length of time I have. Thank you, and you all have yourselves a great and wonderful day.